All right. Welcome back to the second night of F.L.O.W 7 Words, a week of spiritual emphasis. F.L.O.W, which stands for Fellowship, Love, Outreach, and Worship, is a ministry of young adults by young adults. We really focus on safe spaces for genuine dialogue that will help us grow in our spiritual walk with God and gain a deeper understanding of Him. So over the next couple of days, we are going to be talking about the theme endurance. So if you guys tuned in last night from 7:30 to 8:30, we focused specifically on the word persistence. And we talked about running a race and running a race for others. We talked about choices. We talked about active versus passive persistence. So tonight we have our panelists back. We have Rob Harris, we have Anderson Regis, we have Alexia Scott, and we have Simone Smith. So tonight's discussion, we're going to be talking about weight. But before we get into tonight's discussion, we're going to watch a little video on why do we run? Why do we need this thing called endurance?
I run because, first of all, we got the light of the world, and I run this race to bring more light to other people, and especially in the dark places in life. I also run for my friends, my family, and people who I don't even know, so that they can, come closer to God through me, and for God to work through me, so that the world can be a better place for all of creation. And then lastly, I run because, Christ died for me, and because of His salvation, and because Christ loved me first, I love Him in return, and that's like the least thing I can do. So those are the three reasons why I run this race of Christianity.
Hey, so I want to shout out Arthur for kicking off our Tuesday. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, y'all. Our Monday 7 Words, sharing with us why he runs. And if you have a reason that you run this race, that you run this Christian race, let us know, right? Put it in the chat. Reach out to us, and we would love to spotlight you and feature you, because all of your stories matter. All right, last night, we had to cut ourselves off because we got so deep into it. So I'm here with Alexia Scott Mitchell, Anderson Ted Regis, and Simone Petty Smith. So let's get into this word, right? My first question for you guys, here it is. What does weight have to do with endurance? Keep it simple. What does weight have to do with endurance?
Simone, jump off. It's all you. You don't need.
Oh, me. What does weight have to do with endurance? Quite simply, I actually wrote it down here. So when you think of weight, right, like bench press, your arm curls, your leg curls, the more weight you put on, it helps you get to another level, right? It's building your muscle. So you have to push through to reach that, 125, 250 bench pressing. You have to start off with just a bar, right? That 45. So building up when you increase the weight, it increases or builds up your endurance so that you can continue and progress through life.
All right, so Simone's saying weight helps you build up your endurance, get your muscle strong, get in the gym, get your protein shakes right. Who's next? Who got it?
I like that perspective. I think there's 2 layers to this weight thing. I think that's one of the perspective that Simone presented, but I also think that there's the negative side to it, right? And I don't want to sound like a pessimist, but weight can also slow you down when you need to get somewhere. It can also be a hindrance to you. It can also distract you or stop you in whatever goal you're trying to attain. So it depends on your perspective and depends on the goal that you're trying to get to. But I'll leave it at that. I think, there's a negative side at least for me, the most of it is negative in my eyes in terms of weight and biblical perspective, spiritual perspective. It doesn't really serve too much purpose. So.
Ooh, okay. All right. Simone saying big. Lexi saying you don't need it at all. All right, Anderson, what you got?
Not all the way 100%.
Man, Lexi, I don't know about that one. I'm gonna come from a personal perspective. So for me, growing up, Brooklyn basketball was my thing. Like played ball, got injured, all of that stuff. Moving to Maryland was difficult because I can't walk nowhere. Stores are like 50 miles away and so on. So it became more of a laid back, relaxed lifestyle. When I was younger, it was fine. It was straight. Didn't matter. But after marriage and career and kids, it's, sitting in the office, I put on some weight, and my right knee now this year started acting up. Like I started feeling pains. Yeah, bro. So I started feeling pains. The only way for me to relieve that pain though is to drop the weight. And when it comes to weight and endurance, like Simone said, you think about working out, you go to the gym, you can do either two things. You can lift to gain muscle, like Simone is talking about, or you can lift for endurance. So the less weight you lift, the more reps you do, creates endurance. More weight, less reps, create muscle. So when you look at the word, God is like, hey, I want to give you, let me get your burdens. You take my yoke because my yoke is easier.
Oh, whoa. Pause.
You're ahead of yourself, bro. You're ahead of yourself.
My bad. Hey,
slow it down.
My bad.
Brooklyn cats, they try to act like they get ahead of the game, but
I'm saying they better rep. This is Bronx all up in here. Let's go.
Nah. Yeah.
All right. Anderson was already getting to the word. I'm gonna answer the question after we read the scripture, right? So we asked, what does weight have to do with endurance? Where are we even getting that concept from, right? Hebrews 12, verse 1, Amplified Version, AMP, if you want to rock with me. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses who by faith have testified to the truth of God's absolute faithfulness, stripping off every unnecessary weight and the sin which so easily and cleverly entangles us, let us run with endurance and active persistence the race that is set before us. All right. So interesting, right? Talks about letting go of the weight, but I can't help but honestly kind of see what Simone was saying and really what you're all saying. Like, I think depending on how you look at the weight can shape how you run the race. It could even maybe shape why you run the race. So to me, the connection between weight and endurance is deeply rooted in the why you run. So I already see Alexia already pull the trigger. Last night we were all friends and buddy. This is how it really is. Go ahead, Alexia.
That's that.
What you got?
And here, my perspective is, it's coming from that text that you read, right? And when you look at most of the biblical references about weight, it always talks about you removing the weight and you leaving your weight and giving it to Christ. Mm-hmm. So if God is telling me to let go of the weight, there's nothing in the weight that is going to be beneficial to me if he's saying to me, let your weight go, right? Take up mine and give me and let yours go. Because when you think about the weight that we carry spiritually, emotionally, it doesn't aid the progress in any way. You have emotional weight where it may look like anxiousness. The Bible talks about being anxious, right? And that can hinder you in any progress, or be having the fear. Fear is a weight that we carry around constantly as human beings. So we have to actually identify what those weight looks like, and then we're able to decide, okay, is this something that is beneficial to my walk? Is it going to be beneficial at the end of this whole thing or not? And what is God saying? Do I let it go or do I keep it going because I think it may be beneficial, or it may look like it's giving me some kind of strength at this current moment?
Anderson, you look. All right, I'm gonna try this. So Alexia is saying, based on the scripture, and it says, cast off every unnecessary weight.
Necessary weight.
Okay, so I want to actually operate the word unnecessary. It didn't say cast off every weight. It said cast off unnecessary weight. And you posit as a scholar, Bible scholar yourself, that like I read the word, there's rarely any time that God says to take up, put on weight, except for the fact that I can recall the scripture, take up your cross and follow me. So if we look at the word weight, I think it is, hold up, I want to make sure I'm not talking on my left side. Quick Google search here, because I had a definition before. Multiple ones. It could be your mass, a system of units, a unit of heaviness, to add weight to load. Like it's basically something that has substance to it. That to me is the cross. And he specifically says, take up your cross and follow me. So what would you say to that? Is anyone else here? Because that's the type of weight that he's actually encouraging you to pick up.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to what Alexia said, and even if we're not meant to carry the weight for an extended period of time, the fact of the matter is that we have it for some period of time.
Okay.
Right? So the weight is there, whether it's anxiety, it's some type of abuse, it doesn't necessarily mean that we picked up the initial weight, but it was placed on us. And we carry it for some period of time. Now, how long we carry that weight is really dependent on at what point we're willing to trust God and pass it over to him. Right? So sometimes we carry it a little bit longer than we need to because we're like, IG, I got this, rather than IG, you got this.
See what you did there. Okay, we dropping bars here, spiritual bars. Right.
I'm saying.
My question to y'all then, what is it when we talk about weight? What are we talking about? Like, let's keep it a buck here. What is the weight that we're trying to articulate? Because Simone, you talk about there are some things that we're born with that we have to carry. Then you mentioned emotional, physical, stress, all these different things. So what is the weight? Like, what is the word trying to talk about? Anderson, you got a thought? Like, what is this weight?
So we, and I was trying to find the exact verse. I have it here. I think it's in Matthew 11, 28 through
28 through 30.
Yeah, where it talks about anxiousness and all of this stuff. And then it's, hold on. I want to find it because I don't want to. So here we go. Right? It says, come to me all who are weary and heavily burdened. And I'm reading from the Amplified version. By religious rituals that provide no peace, and I will give you rest, refreshing your souls with salvation. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, following me as my disciple, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. The simple fact is Christ is calling us to take on something that, let me put it like this. Christ promised trouble in this life, right?
Right.
He that's the only thing he promised us, trouble, and that if we endure, we get the crown. But in this life, while we're here, we have trouble, right? Christ is saying literally, because you're following me, you're going to see some trouble. That trouble is lighter than the trouble, one, we bring up on ourselves, and two, that we allow the world to weigh us down with. Being anxious about things, that's weight that we don't need to carry because there's nothing we can do about that situation ourselves. Christ will take care of it. We're worried about tomorrow, but we can't do nothing about tomorrow because we're dealing with today. Tomorrow can worry about itself. So these things, the weight is more, it's more of a mental weight that weighs us down, not just physically, but spiritually also.
Okay. Alexia, I see you nodding emphatically.
Yeah, I agree. I think in this, I think we have to, you like to throw monkey wrenches into things, Rob, but I think we have to really, for the benefit of the discussion, really understand what the weight is that the Bible is talking about. Like, and Anderson made point of it in terms of the mental weight that we generally carry around, which God is saying, leave your worries aside and lean on me, right? Because he talks about how he takes care of the birds, right? And how he clothes the earth. If he does so much for them, what makes us think that he wouldn't do much more for us, or what makes us think that we are more valuable than they are? So even in that, we have to understand, what weight is he talking about that he wants us to leave behind, and focus on that.
And I think you're right. I guess when you said the monkey wrench, because I think there is a reality that I don't want to lie to anyone and say there's no weight that you're going to have to carry, because there is.
Oh, you go.
There's a weight that you got to carry.
Yeah, you're going to have to carry it, definitely.
And I think it's really intentional when it says strip off every unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we need to look at. And to keep it honest with you, it is, I think it's mental. I think it's emotional. I think it's generational. Like, I think there are some things that we keep with us that is not conducive for this race. And Anderson, in your scripture, you talk about the traditions and the cultures. Let's keep it a buck. For anyone who's willing to watch and be a part of F.L.O.W, like, that's why F.L.O.W is here. Because we're like, as young adults, or no, let me keep it honest. I am here because I was tired of feeling labored down by Christianity. That's I was tired of being labeled down by Christianity.
That's real talk.
Going to church was laborious, right? Reading the word, laborious. Doing a devotional was laborious. Praying was laborious. Like, people talking to me about church was exhausting. And I was like, nah, this is not right. But what I was exhausted by was people's traditions. I was exhausted by people's misconceptions of Christ and their poor relationship. And I carried that with me and realized I didn't like it. So I'm just being honest with you. I think there's a weight that we got to carry, but it's definitely not that.
Well,
I agree. I think, go ahead, Anderson.
No. Lady.
No, I think about one of my biggest, qualms with, the church is how we are very pretentious, right, in our walk, and how we have a facade about the walk, and it's kind of basically a lie about the Christian walk. We pretend to be perfect, and we pretend, we hide the weight, we hide the mental and emotional struggle that we go through, and it gives off to people this perfection, and this thing that, it doesn't seem attainable for other people. So when they're struggling, we don't seem relatable. We don't seem as if, we've been there too, so we can help, right? So it talks about, I think about in terms of the weight and what we can, do with the weight that we have to carry in this world. And the Bible talks about it, sharing each other's burdens, right? And leaning on each other. And if you see a brother stumbling, you help him that person when they fall, if you're spiritually strong, right? But a part of that is transparency and vulnerability. And we don't know how to do any of those things when it comes on to the Christian walk. Go ahead.
So you remember what the problem Christ had with the Pharisees? Mm-hmm. The problem was simply that they burdened the people with a bunch of laws and things, rituals that they were to follow. They, to the point where they couldn't even really focus on worshiping God or keeping the true laws of God. But because they were burdened down with the things of men, it made it very difficult for them to see past what was in front of them. And for us, it's much like that. There is that like Alexia said, there is that mindset of the rituals are what matters. The rituals don't matter. Rituals don't matter. The relationship matter. The relationship succeeds everything else. But personally, for me, I'd left the church at one point. I'd left the church because of things that I saw, and I said, listen, Lord, this can't be it. I can't be part of this. Like, you took me out the street to bring me here. Like, my homies in the street more loyal than this. This is it. So I rolled out. We moved down to Georgia, and we drove to church every Sabbath. You know, of course, we had young kids. My wife, she grew up in the church. So, you know, I'm not going to stop them from, hey, just because I'm not feeling the church, I'm not going to say like, yo, we're not going no more. So we went, and I'm standing in the hallway of that church down in Georgia, and an elderly couple came up to me. I don't want to say elderly, an older couple came up to me, and they're like, every weekend, every Sabbath, we see you here standing. Why? Why are you always standing in the hallway? Like, well, outside of, I'm waiting for my kids. They're right in children's church. It's like, you know, children's church is going to go on for the entire service. Come into this contemporary Bible study. When I tell you, I walked in that room apprehensive because I'm like, oh, here we go again. I walked out of that room 2 years later, a different person, totally different person, because the burden I was feeling when it came to church, it was lifted because now I was able to actually study the word with people that were trying to live the word. The life itself has its own burdens. There's no need for us to burden each other down with other things, nor is there a need for us to burden ourselves down with other things. A lot of, and just one more point real quick. You guys talked about the burdens that we put on others, but there's some burdens that we put on ourselves that they're just not necessary. They're not necessary. We want to be rich. We're chasing that bread, but imagine what you got to go to get that money. If everything is about the bag, then your whole focus is going to be on the bag. Everything else is going to be, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop.
You know, Anderson, you bring up this point, and as we talk about the weight, right? The weight that we put on ourselves, there's this emotional weight sometimes, right? Like, let's go back to the gym example. Some of us are trying to, you know, gain some muscles, some weight in terms of muscle. Yeah. And other of us are trying to lose, right? Like I'm feeling like baby Huey right now. So I'm trying to try to lose a couple. But there's also this emotional or mental weight that we sometimes carry around with us, right? Things that people say that we don't get rid, that we haven't gotten rid of. Things that people do to others that we witness and causes us to have this negative mindset about church as a whole, forgetting that church is not the building, or church is it should be us, but we're looking at this larger group and what they've done to this person. Now all of a sudden I'm done with the whole church thing, the whole worldwide Adventist congregation or Christianity or Christ, off of this one person that doesn't even know that they turned you off. You know, and I'm thinking, because today I was doing with my students the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
That's a big thing.
Right. And how often do we allow the negative weights, the emotional abuse, the bad words, the depression, the low self-esteem, like all these different things to really cause us to have a fixed mindset and prevent us from moving forward and enduring this race that Christ has set before us.
Okay, now we get into the deep places. Like, this is what I want to talk about, because Simone, I think you're absolutely right. I think one of the specific unnecessary weights that we carry is oftentimes the wounds and the hurts that we received. But as a clinician, right, and as a human being and somebody, I don't like be hurt. I don't like to feel hurt. You know, sometimes we carry with us the phantom pains, right? Like, you can't engage in this thing called like Christ life while you got these active wounds hurting you. Like, it's hard to engage in that process. And I think that's one of the things that really keeps us weighed down and unable to run this. I don't know. Now, again, me be honest with y'all, whoever chooses to watch this. I think the weight that I carried with me for a really, really long time was this idea that our church or our perception of church would not change. That's me. Like, I don't carry people's hurt with me. Like, honestly, I'm selfish where I'm like, that's on you. Like, right. If you got a problem with me and I don't know about it, that's your problem. So if I hear about from other people, it still sounds like your problem. Right. So that's not something that weighs me down. But I was weighed down because I like the dynamicy of life, or that the potential in life that is the ability to grow and to change. And honestly, I'm sitting in my church and I didn't remember, like, we did a certain church in New York, but the church in Jersey, I was probably old enough to really engage in a certain way. And it was lame. Just like lame. We just did the same things. Like, they talking about, oh, we got to really engage with the community, but you're here every day. How are you engaging the community? Oh, we really got to just bring the word alive. But so-and-so over there, he's legit just like stepping on his wife though. Like, we see it. Like, he don't even sit next to his wife in church though. So what are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like, no, we got to really engage this, but you are hungover right now at this moment. And maybe there's nothing wrong with drinking, but I'm saying, like, you're saying one thing and you're not. So I got weighed down by this idea that just this probably won't change, because everybody before me was saying, well, this is how the church is, like Wednesday night Bible study is Wednesday night Bible study. Don't say it's on Tuesday. Can't be on Thursday because it's Wednesday night Bible study. It's just what we do on Wednesday night. And honestly, I felt weighed down by that and realized that was one of those unnecessary things that I had to let go of. I was really going to engage in my Christian run.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think even what I'm hearing you saying, a part of this flow ministry, we talked about safe spaces, right? But we can, like Simone said, we look at the larger church, but we're not looking at what we're contributing, right? So if we want to see that change, we have to start it within ourselves, right? We have to make those choices. So if I want a space where I can be vulnerable, I can be transparent about my struggles or the weight that I'm carrying around, because I need help in overcoming those things, right? Sometimes I can't, most of the time you can't overcome those weights on your own, but I need help, right? But I can't get help, one, if I don't acknowledge that I need the help and actually seek the help, right? So whether it's like seeking someone to talk to, whether it's going to therapy or whatever the case is, but I have to actively choose to be the difference, right? So even for me, something that I struggled for a long time was disappointing people who I may look up to, right? And people may not know that I look up to them, but I know that I look up to them, or I know that I value them to a certain extent, or so I may have hide away or not be interactive because I don't know if me potentially doing something may somehow make them get disappointed in me in some strange way. I know it's a little weird, but I think
real for you.
For me, I had to acknowledge that, and I had to say that out loud, right? And I had to, the people who I felt like I may have disappointed or may have not disappointed, I had to start the conversation and be transparent in my circles and in the people who are around me. So one, they know that this is something that I have an issue with, and they can also know how to approach or address or help me in the situation. So I think a part of it is acknowledging the weights that we're carrying and not being ashamed of the weights that we're carrying. We all have weights to carry. We all have different issues that we're dealing with, and we have to get to a place where we have to consciously decide we don't want to be ashamed of that. The shame in itself is a weight, right? On top of the weight that you're carrying, because you're hindering yourself and you're now shutting down from the world around you. You can't live the true potential that God has for you when you're feeling ashamed of something, so.
Alexia, I want to, because you talk about the personal weight that we carry and we don't label. And I think it's a big thing to label the things that you're dealing with. But I want to bring a biblical example, because we said this entire week, we were going to talk about experiences, but we're going to show people how they're all mirrored in the word. 1 Samuel 17, story of David and Goliath, right? And we talk about, I'm going to go back, I'm going to just double down on my point of sometimes you got to let some other people's weights go. What am I talking about? 1 Samuel 17, David, Goliath, Philistines are attacking the Israelites, right? And Goliath is he's acting like Brooklyn, right? Putting his chest out there, just saying, oh, I got all this, right? I'm the best at Burrow, I'm all this, that, and the third.
At least y'all know the truth.
I'm just saying, I'm reading it how I see it. And like David comes up, right? And as a true New Yorker, right, from one of the hardest boroughs there are, he's like, yo, why you guys shook from this man? Like, why are you scared? What's happening? And other people in the camp are like, well, you know, he's big and he's huge, his spear is XYZ, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, fast forward, David's like, I got it, I'll take it. Saul, being shook himself, has David, hey, put on my armor. Put this on because it'll protect you. David puts it on and it basically communicates this idea of like, I don't need this. This is too heavy. I can't move. Right? Think about it symbolically. This ain't a weight that I was meant to carry. Right? I can't take your weight. That was an armor that was meant for Saul, not for David. He could have tried to, and if he did, he would have died. He could have carried the weight that Saul had. Somebody who was a senior, somebody who was trying to pretend like they were going into faith, somebody who was acting like a leader. He could have taken his weight on and was like, nah, pause, that's not for me. Let me try to do something different. Let me trust my faith in the God that I know, and I'm going to step out there with the right weights. And so he goes to the river and picks up 4 stones, which have weight to them, because you got to know which is unnecessary or not. And he goes out there and, again, like a true Bronx bomber, handles his business. Goliath is dead. But I want to use it as an example of, like, you got to know which weight is for you. Like the Hebrews 12:1 says, cast off the unnecessary weight. Unnecessary. Sometimes you putting on other people's stuff on you that's not necessary. That's not yours to carry. Let that go. Right. Literally take that off. Like, you ask me, you know, what that's like. Yo, sometimes I have to literally speak words of life into myself and be like, nah, that's not for me. Right? That anger, when they cut me off and they try to flip me off, but nah, that's not for me. Something happened in your day that you're trying to put on me, but that's not for me. So that's one of the literal things that I will tell myself in order just to not have some things on me.
You know, Rob, you bringing that up and going back to the whole thing of weight and what it is that we're able to endure. God is our ultimate spot man, right? When you're at the gym and you're lifting weights, you're doing squats, whatever, you need somebody to spot you after a certain point, right? Just in case anything happens. And 1 Corinthians 10:13, right, reminds us, I'm reading New King James, no temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man, but God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will also make the way of escape that you will be able to bear it. So whatever that weight is that's what's basically saying. Like, he's your ultimate spot man. You gonna try and bench it, he will be there. And he's gonna make sure, don't worry, I got you. Like, you gonna get through this and breathe in, right? You're pushing up, you breathe out. Let's go. We got this. As much as you're struggling, we got this. We got this.
So weight is necessary in life, right? It's absolutely necessary. It's necessary because it has a purpose in our lives. I look at James 1:2-4 that tells us, you know, consider it nothing but joy. Reading the Amplified again. Consider it nothing but joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you fall into various trials. Be assured that the testing of your faith through experience produces endurance, leading to spiritual maturity and inner peace. And let endurance have its perfect result and do a thorough work so that you may be perfect and completely developed in your faith, lacking nothing. Now, if I go to the gym and only go to the gym, let's say 1 week out of the year, what can I expect to gain from that?
More weight.
That's it. There's nothing. I'm not going to build up my endurance. Yeah. It's probably going to get worse. My strength is it's not going to go anywhere. I'm probably going to get weaker. I'm going to end up carrying all this weight around that's going to affect other areas of my body. That's what we do as Christians. A lot of time we don't let go of the emotional pains that was caused to us. We don't let go of the mental strains that we cannot deal with within ourselves, the things that we have no control over. But God is saying, consider it pure joy when we go through certain trials, because those trials, those weights that are put on us by God, not ourselves, by God, they have a benefit for us. And that benefit, as we see, is to perseverance and endurance.
Yeah.
Those two things, the weight plus the perseverance plus the endurance, they will help us get to where it is that not only we desire to be, but where God desire for us to be. But there's some things, like you guys said, there's some unnecessary weight that we just don't need. We keep piling it up on ourselves, and we're not willing to let it go. We're not willing to deal with it. In the Black community, saying, "Oh, I have a mental problem," like that's a sin. Mm-hmm. He's saying, I struggle with anxiety. I struggle with depression. That's a sin, but that's weight that we have on us unnecessarily.
Yeah, that's real.
Because, it's not the popular thing in the community. So, as Christians, we also struggle with that, though. As Christians, we struggle with that. We want to be, like Alexia said, we want to be perfect. So we fake it, but we won't make it faking it at all. So we gotta give that weight to God. Like he said, he wants to take that burden. He wants to take that weight, plus the weight that will be helpful to building us up for the kingdom.
Yo, Anderson, I want to reiterate to anyone, I mean this so much, anyone watching, like, flow is the result of young adults tired of carrying the unnecessary weight. I can't say it any clearer than that. Because I've looked at people talking about, man, they basically describe a relationship with God, but they don't engage in it because the church hurt them, or the church, is not doing the thing that they think they should do or whatnot. And so they're carrying a weight with them that makes it hard for them to even begin the run or to run it with any sustenance. I think that's the right application.
Yep, right.
Okay, cool. And so, like, flow is here because we're like, yo, let that go. My thing is, me personally, let that go. Like Alexia was saying, and I was being transparent, when I realized that, like, I was part of the problem in a sense, like I was carrying the weight of the traditions of the church. I think somebody in the chat, I think it was Renee of All Trades, talked about how in her experiences, the Adventist church is essentially becoming the thing it preaches about. Like it's becoming so rooted in traditions and et cetera, that she's concerned. I want to make sure, because I want jobs in the future. That is the rest of our audience.
Okay, go ahead and speak what he told you to speak.
But when I realized, I was like, yo, church don't have to be like this. Matter of fact, my church, this right here, doesn't have to be like this. I sought out to get to know God for myself and said, Lord, I'm going to be like your Joshua. Wherever you tell me to step into, I'm going to step into with confidence, and we're going to change some spaces. So, like, this message is for young adults out there who, like, yo, let that weight go. It's unnecessary.
I really agree with that. I think even what came to mind when you're talking about really the unnecessary weight, and also, when you talk about how you don't really struggle with the idea of somebody else's, struggle over there, it made me think about Mary and Martha, right? Where in that scenario with Mary and Martha, where Jesus came to visit them, and I think that is in like Luke 10:38.
The death of Lazarus.
42. I can read it. So it says, I'm reading the New King James Version. Now it happened as they went that he entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary who sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she approached him and said, Lord, do not, pardon?
I was thinking the wrong story. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore, tell her to help me. And Jesus answered and said to Martha, 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 are you worried and troubled about many things, but the one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part which will not be taken away from her. And what I got from that was, first of all, you have to seek out Christ, right? Seek out him so that it can give you clarity to know which things are unnecessary in your life, right? And huh?
Go ahead, Pastor. We listening.
Are unnecessary in your life, but also that they're distraction, right? Because Mary was trying to make sure that she wasn't going to miss anything that was about to happen, right? But Martha was so distracted with all of these other things that she was missing out on the one thing that was the purpose and one thing that she should have been consumed with at the time. So sometimes it's not just about what we want. We're missing something essential in this journey that we need to carry, which is probably, in Mary's situation, she needed God's word for her benefit at that time. So sometimes we have to realize that we need to draw closer to Christ so that we can get the clarity to understand what weight that we're carrying that is holding us back, that is really distracting us from the purpose that God has for us.
Yeah, I think we also there also has to come a point in time where we know what weight of our fellow person to help them with. Right? Galatians 6:2 reminds us to, bear one another's burdens. It doesn't mean taking up everything that Rob has. But if I know Rob is struggling with something, and I think this is the issue that many young adults tend to have with the church, you see me struggling, and instead of saying, hey, how can I help you? It's you see what they're doing over there.
More weight. Okay,
right? So now you're creating more weight for me. And the bystander who is trying to figure it all out is like, yo, I don't want to be a part of this because this person is causing more harm than good. Right? Or I see what this person is doing. Nah, that's not really my cup of tea. So I think there comes a point where we have to, just look to help each other. How is it that I'm gonna help my fellow Christian? How am I going to help Rob carry this burden? What can I do to help him? I don't got to carry the whole weight. And carrying that burden may simply be praying for him. It could be, yo, I didn't see you this past week. Is everything good? And that just gives him the opportunity to say, yo, X, Y, and Z is going on. You know what? Thanks for reaching out. I was in a really dark place. Like sometimes that's all it really takes. It doesn't mean having to hold a 2-hour Bible study. It doesn't mean having a whole season of prayer or laying hands on someone, but it is just sometimes just being flipping courteous, right? Like, yo, you good? Haven't seen you. I know this thing is going on, or I heard this thing about you, or just hearing something about someone and deciding, yo, I am not going to continue with this story because I don't know if it's true. So go check the source before coming and saying anything to me.
Anderson, I'm gonna jump in. Simone, what you reminded me, because we talk about the run, that reminds me of running with, like, having the right running partner. Like, you can run alone, you can do a distance alone, but if you got somebody to set pace with you, that's the same person that, like, knows when to fall back, right? Just to catch you and say, hey, yo, we got this, go forward. Or actually run a little ahead to challenge you, like, yo, come on, you can get up here and pull you up. But you gotta, it is such a nuanced thing, but that's what came into my mind, is like having a good running, like being a good running partner for somebody else, like helping them carry the weight sometimes is really just running with them. Go ahead, sorry.
No, that's an awesome point, is that, sometimes we may feel that in life, this is something I have to deal with myself. It's on me. Nobody else can help me. And that's a mentality for real. Growing up in New York, like, that's a mentality I grew up with. It's just like, yo, I got to handle this. The funny thing is, though, everybody else's drama, I would jump in. Wow. I mean, I'll be the first one. You got a problem with him? Now you have a problem with me. But when it came to me, I would be like, nah, I got it. So it's having that person to walk this road with and run this race with, like Rob is saying. It makes a whole lot of a difference. 2 Corinthians 4:17, and this is I guess for me my wrap up, because we spoke about weight and the various weights that we carry, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, spiritual weight, and we spoke about the good and the bad weight. But I wanna leave our audience with this, which is from 2 Corinthians 4:17, which says, "For our momentary light distress, this passing trouble, is producing for us an eternal weight of glory, a fullness beyond all measure, surpassing all compassions, a transcendent splendor, and an endless and an endless blessedness." Listen, we're gonna face trials and tribulations. We're gonna go through some things in this life. It is what it is. Like Christ, the one thing Christ promised is that we were going to have trouble. He never said, listen, your days are going to be peaceful. He said, because you choose to follow me, you're going to have trouble, but you don't have to face that alone. Not only do you have me, but I'm going to surround you with some people that's also going to help you carry that weight. And you're going to help them carry their weight. Because at the end of the day, this weight these things that we're facing, they're light in comparison to what it really could be. To what if God wasn't carrying those burdens for us, it would be much heavier, and I don't think we could bear it. So we spoke about being able to bear, God not giving us more than what we can bear. So imagine if he had released his hand, we would probably drop to the floor. So let's not get discouraged. Weight is necessary in building endurance. It's necessary in building strength. But there's some ways we just gotta we gotta let go of. And as we walk with Christ, that weight will fall off. It will definitely fall off.
I want to leave the ladies with the last word, so I'm gonna jump in here. My final word is actually related to the thought that I said about David, who had to give away Saul's armor. Right, that was an unnecessary weight. I want to remind everybody out there, some people are putting stuff on you that are not for you. But that being said, in Ephesians, I believe 6, it talks about the right type of armor that prepares you, right? It's an armor that protects your head, your body, your waist, your legs. It girds it all up, right? Everything's tight. And in order to run the race right, you need the right type of gear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that gear is weighted in order for you to run the race properly. So my word to you is, put on Christ for yourself. Stop wearing him like through someone else, because that's a worn out Christ. Let me keep it a buck. That's like them Louis Vuitton bags that the V and L is backwards, right? It's not real. Okay, you wearing fraudulent stuff. You got to get the authentic gear for yourself, and that allows you to wear it for yourself. I didn't mean no shade for anybody out there with the VL bag. All right, you pay for what you can afford, right? I'm just, like, join F.L.O.W in our efforts and in our work to make sure that we are carrying the right weights and putting down the unnecessary ones. So, ladies.
Lexi, we both looking at each other. As the gentleman here mentioned, there are so many different weights that we carry, situationships and frustrations and finances and burdens and COVID and, all these different types of weights that we're bearing in life. But one thing that I'm trying to become better at and really am working on through this ministry with F.L.O.W is to be a cheerleader for more individuals, right? And to help make sure that the burdens or the weights that you are carrying are bearable.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite scriptures is James 5:16, which says, confess your faults one to another and pray one for another that you may be healed, right? The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. So it's not just about sending up some cheap, for lack of a better term, cheap words for someone, but really taking the time to pray for those who are in my circle and making sure that you, as well as myself, that the weight that we have, can be a little bit lighter, and that God will always, just help us get through.
Yeah. I, just echo what everybody else is saying here. And just with kind of just summing up what everyone says, for me, in terms of the weight, I realize that a lot of the weight that we do carry are the desires of our own hearts, the things that we want, right? And not the desires of Christ. And in order to really kind of endure this race, we have to walk in the Spirit. And it brings me to the verse of Galatians 5:16 and 16 and 7. I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall. I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other to keep you from doing the things that you want to do. So in everything, just remember that in order to endure, we have to walk in the Spirit and ask God to give us his understanding and his desires, replace our desires with his, so that we can endure and last and help each other on the journey and be true to ourselves and be true to others around us, to be transparent and to be loving and caring in this journey. It's not easy. And I think we have to keep encouraging each other and praying for each other, like Simone says, to walk this journey. And that is even though it's not easy, it's still possible and it can be done because Christ has done it before us. So.
You're on mute, Rob.
Almost the whole show. I said I want to appreciate y'all for chopping it up with me. I know our moderator is about to jump on here, but just thank y'all, man. This was dope.
Wow, this was another great discussion, everybody. Thank you so much. I mean, in this talking about, weight and endurance and running the Christian race. And so just some of the takeaways that I heard over this last hour are, how you look at weight can determine how and why you run the Christian race. How long we carry the weight depends on how much we trust God, and when are we ready to let it go? The verse was talking about stripping off the unnecessary weight, whether it's emotional, cultural, mental, relationships, financial, whatever that may be. Something else that was mentioned is, are we going to have to carry weight? We are going to have to carry weight at some point, but it doesn't mean that you have to do it alone. And that was something that we talked about, last night, and that, there are other people that are watching you run this race and that are running it with you as well. Maybe they're waiting for you at the finish line, or they're right behind you, or they're right beside you. So just know that this is not something, and these are not burdens that we have to carry by ourselves. And then just one thing that, Alexia just kind of wrapped up in the end says, oftentimes the weight that we carry are the desires of our own heart. So things of the flesh and not of the spirit. So I think those are just really powerful points. So I'm really, really excited about tomorrow's discussion, which again, 7:30 to 8:30 here on the F.L.O.W channel, through the Metro SCA website, on Facebook, and some of our other streaming platforms. And we're going to continue on with the overall theme of endurance, but tomorrow we'll be looking at joy. So thank you all so much for joining. Remember to like, share, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you tomorrow night to talk about joy.